Hello, everybody, and welcome. We are so happy to have you here today for our Get Your Company and Team on Track for Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, or better known as the CMMC. This event is brought to you by GeoCyber Systems in association with the NICE Cybersecurity Career Ambassador and Community of Interest Program. All of our speakers today are NICE Cybersecurity Career Ambassadors. I'm joined here with John McNicholas. And so happy to have you here, John, and happy to have our audience here today. We'll be taking questions throughout the event today. This is our opening session to just kind of orient everybody, welcome everybody, tell you what you need to know as we move through our sessions, just to make it so that the sessions are easily rewatchable. We move from different live streams, so it's all on the playlist and it's all in the Luma event, and you can register for the Luma event, which is in the description, and that will also give you post-event resources. So really excited to have you all here today, and let us get started. So this is our kind of opening. I'm your host for this session, and then I will be turning it over to our very experienced guest. So excited to have everybody here today, and we'll go through all the sessions and all of our speakers. So this is just kind of getting the CMMC landscape. John, I'm going to have some questions for you as we go, because I know you are well certified in this space of where we're at and what it means. So, John, maybe you can help me here. I'm hearing that research has been done that's saying that there's a staggering reality for the DIB that only 1% of companies feel that they're actually fully prepared for the November requirement that everybody's kind of moving to that second phase of the rollout. And just the reality is that the government contractors in this space are just not ready for it. Can you kind of comment on what you're seeing?
Absolutely. This is one of those cases where these audits, they're expensive. They're not cheap. And a lot of these businesses saw it coming, but didn't know exactly when. And now that it's actually live, they weren't ready for it. And this is something where they wanted to wait until they had to do it. And now it's written into contracts. If you're a subcontractor, you have to, once it's written into contracts, it's mandatory. And once it's become mandatory, a lot of people are scrambling. That's what I see a lot of, unfortunately.
And are there, I mean, I will get to this, I'm sure, deeply today, but I'm sort of hearing and seeing there's just not enough auditors to meet the schedule. Is that a reality that you're seeing as well?
Yes. Yeah. The CCA cert, which, we'll go over and talk about today. It's the required, the assessor certification. And I've heard there's only about 500 of them, more and more every day, but there's only around 500 right as of 2 weeks ago. I heard that statistic.
Oh,
So
wow. Okay.
the C3 PAOs are having a tough time finding the CCAs and the lead CCAs. So that's difficult for them, and it's a great market for people looking to get into it. So
Absolutely.
yeah, but it's just the supply chain down from a lot of them weren't prepared. Now a lot of these organizations are scrambling, and this C3 PAOs are just growing and looking to grow their staff.
So, and that's what you said, compliance costs are forcing a market exodus. So they're saying that this is just stats that I was reading, is that the 33,000 to 44,000 companies are expected to exit the defense market by 2027. Now, is this more of just a full exit or just a pause while they figure it out and get compliant? I mean, how many, how do you read these statistics?
I would say it's a little bit of both, because it would depend say if you have a manufacturer, say if they do work for the general public and then a defense industrial base, it would have to be cost effective, because say if the audit's going to cost them, I've heard some of these audits can cost up to $25,000-$30,000. So if they're only making $15,000 from their sales to the Department of War, might not be cost effective. So those manufacturers I could see dropping out. But what you said about the pause, that's where I think most of them are, because it's difficult to get a contract with the U.S. government, especially the Department of War. once you do though, it can be lucrative once you learn the ropes. So a lot of them, I think, are just pivoting. That's what you see a lot of, and there's just a lot of opportunity for just consultants, assessors. It's a good market for job seekers.
Absolutely. And we are both, and all our speakers today are part of the NICE Cybersecurity Career Ambassador Program. And that, is here to sort of illuminate and encourage people and inspire people to look at different pathways related to cybersecurity careers. And obviously, it seems like there's going to be a fair amount of work in this field. I mean, obviously, it's not without its investment that you have to make in terms of time and money to get your own credentials. But it seems like the work is going to be there.
Definitely. Yeah. I think it's an opportunity for those looking to get into the field.
All right. So the federal government determined that self-attestation failed, and I think that was
Yeah.
so. Let's talk about level one. Level one was sort of the self-audit. How are we doing? I'm doing great. Okay, good. And then that's not working out so well. So now we're going to the CMMC mandate of a third-party certification, the independent C3 PAO assessment, and certified supply chain security. You are well versed in all this. Can you speak to this a little bit?
Yeah, they're still self-reporting for level one if you're doing federal controlled information. But if you're doing CUI, the self-reporting didn't go well. And I think it was one of the former heads of the Department of War said the industry kind of brought it on themselves, because when they went looking into it, they found a lot of organizations that reported that they were good in their self-assessments were not. So, and that's usually the nature of the beast. So with this, you get a third party assessment. It's the way to go. It really is. If you're handling CUI, you need the level two, you get a C3 PAO. This way, that the Defense Industrial Base, the Department of War, know that the Defense Industrial Base is doing their due diligence. It's supply chain risk. It really is. And it comes back to third party risk. You're
Right.
only as strong as your weakest link. And the Department of War wants to make sure that they're aware of who they're doing business with.
Absolutely. And I would say even internally at some companies, I mean, obviously some companies clearly have compliance departments and people whose job is to bring awareness to those risks or those places where people are out of compliance, or even like cybersecurity, whether it's falling onto the IT teams or its dedicated cybersecurity department. Within that, sometimes it's hard to push a company when the company's like, no, we're fine. If you're saying, hey, maybe we're not fine. And having a third party external person can be a better at pushing that forward, especially when a company kind of hits its limit of saying, we don't want to go any further. We think we're good is good enough.
Absolutely. The third party always helps, an unbiased voice, because it's just human nature. You always think that we're good enough and we're meeting the standards, where a third party is going to help us determine that with an unbiased determination.
So the window for compliance is rapidly closing. So we are 7 months from today. So it began on November 10th, 2025, that self-assessment requirement. But now we're going to the requirement for that sort of third-party certification required by most CUI handlers. So where do we think it's going in the next 7 months? Because that's a tight deadline. And is everybody just on pause or off-boarded by that November 10th deadline?
What I've heard in the industry, it's coming. What's in their contracts? A lot of these suppliers, if it's in your contract, because I think all newly written contracts from November 10th include it. But if you were on a 3-year contract before that, you're still going to what was in the contract. But the deadlines are going to affect it. You want to make sure you have all your T's crossed. But yeah, I mean, the third party, anybody processing CUI should be looking towards getting the level 2 certification, no matter what the dates are.
So if it's in your contract and you don't comply, or then you in breach of contract. So it's pretty motivating, I'd imagine.
Yeah. And I see what I've been hearing is the greatest example of that is the large contractors. And I don't want to say any names, but say you're a subcontractor to a very large defense contractor. they're ensuring all their subcontractors are CMMC level 2, no matter what. And some of them are coming back saying we only need level 1. And I don't blame them. From their perspective, they don't want to be working for a client and all of a sudden find out that their subcontractor isn't qualified. So that's where I think most of the push is coming from, the large defense contractors. But with the government, if they up the contract, they could put a stipulation in. If any modifications are done, I've heard if any modifications are done to the contracts, they can add the CMC clause now, even before it's due, before it expires. So I feel that everybody, if they're not moving yet, really need to start moving. And if you're in the defense industrial base.
And 7 months, especially with the summer coming, goes by very, very quickly.
Yes.
So systemic implementation gaps guarantee a critical bottleneck. So there's an estimated need for 2,000 to 3,000 certified assessors. And the reality today is we have 600 certified assessors. Now, you're going to talk about certifications. And I believe, where do you fit into this?
Yeah, I just fully got my CCA April 10th. And it can take a little while. Thank you. We'll talk about it, but it's a process. Most of my experience is in the federal government, so I was lucky to get that tier 3 investigation we'll talk about, but it can take a little while. So if you're planning to come into this career, yeah, definitely, it's not going to happen overnight.
So the primary barriers preventing organizational access, there's the navigation. They don't know where to start. So foundational docs, SSMP, PC, and A&M, we'll talk about that. Economics, they don't know what it will cost. Build versus buy, assessment fees. Accountability, they do not know who owns it internally. IT versus leadership versus compliance, we talked about that before. Even if you're sort of trying to self-attest internally, the question, I guess, is what department owns it and what department feels like they have the authority to say, we see a problem, this is good is not good enough. Especially if there's pushback from other departments saying we're fine.
Yeah, there's a cost to it. And the cost, it has to, and you always hear it, security in the security industry, security is a business decision. This has to come from the executives. This has to come from the C-suite. And if they don't support it, the organization it's going to be a struggle.
Well, you actually are saying exactly what I was thinking and I hadn't yet articulated, was when I've heard of these roles and internal resistance, people don't want to get fired. And if you create too much stress within the company of saying, I don't think we're where we need to be, you can risk your position. And so I think tone at the top and leadership is exactly what's going to drive it. I think you're absolutely correct on that. Because if someone feels secure enough to speak up because they know it aligns with leadership's position, then their role is secure. So we've got the practitioner-led roadmap to immediate readiness, navigation, economics, accountability. So we've got the 3 sides of CMC we're going to talk about today. The small business. So session 1 is our panel. You'll be one of our panelists. I'll introduce all the speakers for today. Then we move it to Ray McElroy, who will lead us through the small business reality. Then we go to Frank, which will talk about organizational ownership. Then we've got your session on certification pathways. And then we'll wrap out the day with Darcy for beyond compliance and AI. And I'm super excited because the gang's all here. We've done sessions before. I'm so happy, and then including Ray in our lineup today. So we've got our panel is coming up next, and which is the 3 sides: compliance, leadership, and the workforce. And I'm so excited about all of you. You're all well credentialed, and I'll say, John, you on LinkedIn don't put all your many certifications next to your name the way Darcy does. So I've noticed in the past when I've cut and paste your name, I miss all of your certificates. And then later I went back and I was like, oh yeah, I need to add all those because you are well credentialed.
I've been in the industry a little bit. Thank you, though.
You have, so we love hearing from you. So let's just do a quick run through again. This is sort of our orientation session. So after our opening panel, we'll move to session 2, which is compliance without getting overwhelmed. And Ray has a lot of expertise in this, and she will be talking specifically a little bit more focused on small business compliance and level 1 and level 2 requirements for small primes and subcontractors. the real world cost realities, which you've mentioned, and the practical first steps, SPRS, scoring, SSP, and POA&M. And so she will lead us through that. And then we move to Frank, who talks about what leadership needs to own, assessing ownership beyond the IT department, resourcing compliance properly, and building internal momentum against a fixed deadline. And so I think, again, it's just exactly what you said, tone at the top, leadership really, really matters here, and how they're prioritizing this and communicating it to their teams. And then we come to you in your session on the CCP and the CCA journey, mapping RMF and NIST SP 800-171 to level 2, and navigating the C3 PAO assessment process. So we're all excited for all these sessions, but do you have anything you want to add, since you'll be leading this one?
Yeah, I just look forward to the questions. I want to make it interactive. I really feel that if you're thinking about it, coming from the military, veterans, people transitioning, it's so great because your experience transfers right into it, and I think it's real interesting work. So really looking forward to getting questions and just educating folks on how to get into the CMMC assessor fields by by knowing what the CCP and the CCA requirements are. They can be a little confusing.
Fantastic. I always take your lead. For example, in one of our previous sessions, you mentioned InfraGard, and I'd never heard of it before. And now I'm a new member.
That's great. That's a great group. I'm glad that went quickly. That could take a little bit, but it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, I'm so excited about it. But honestly, if I hadn't heard it from you, I would not have known. So I really find enormous value for myself, as well as I know our audience does as well. So I really appreciate kind of even those small little things, how they can be a seed for something for any of us to continue to grow in these directions. And then we'll wrap out our event with session 5, AI governance, identity, and the future of DIB security, with Jersey Hernandez, who is a regular here. And his focus areas are AI governance frameworks, identity security as a foundational layer, and defending against insider threats in the defense industrial base. And that will wrap out our day. So that's our sessions today, and super excited for it. So we have a minute or two. If anybody has a question, you want to drop or say hello, drop it in the chat. We'll take a moment to answer any questions you have. And just love that you're here, whether you're joining us live or catching the replay. And I know this is going to be just a really day that's going to be packed with a lot of insight and information. Especially, I think what's particularly relevant is the short deadline. I mean, 7 months when we're already in mid-April. Once you hit summer, like that flies by, and the next thing you know, you're in September, and then right behind it, you're in November. So it's going to come up real fast.
Yeah, it's going to come quick.
And I think that it's important to be talking about it. I do have a question for you related to the. Actually, I can pull our slides off and come back to our. Here we are. There we go. Question. So do you know, like, the big tech companies like Microsoft and Google, like where they're fitting into the CMMC compliance? Because I was doing a bit of research on Microsoft and Microsoft's DIB and Microsoft Federal, and they had a lot of blogs about CMMC in 2022 and 2023. And they've gone completely quiet on it since then. And I'm just curious where they sort of sit relative to all of this. And do they help? Are their platforms compliant? Some, not all? Where do they fit in the ecosystem?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. They're usually suppliers, because I know that Microsoft, their gov clouds and some of that, they're expensive, but they're an easy fit for some of these companies that can afford it. If you can get into those clouds and afford them, a lot of them have the compliance that you can inherit, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And I know Google Workspace, you can utilize that as well too. And I think that's great for the smaller businesses. And you want to inherit as much as you can in a smart way. You have to make sure you're doing your due diligence. But I would say, I mean, and you're right, I'm not sure if they need help or if they need support. But I will say that CMMC, it's amazing how big the defense industrial base is. Universities, research centers. I mean, there were some organizations, I think Penn State got hit with a compliance violation a few years ago. So there's a lot of industries. It's not just weapons manufacturers or things like that. A lot of industries are involved in that defense industrial base that you wouldn't necessarily think of. So yeah, it's really widespread. But back to Google and Microsoft, it'll be interesting. But I think of them as suppliers. But you brought up a good point. I'm not sure their compliance will probably be, and we'll talk about it, the level 3 certification, because they're so big, they just go past the level 2. They'll need to be, assessed on another level. Than,
well, I'm just referring
business.
to like the customers that use their technologies, how useful that, how aligned they are together. If you're sort of a Microsoft customer, a Google customer, how much of that, like you said, can you inherit and can is already kind of pre-built and
Oh, it's very expensive, but the Microsoft you can. Absolutely. I've heard that their Gov High cloud, you can move into that, and a lot of it you can inherit for your level 2. So yeah. But
okay, so that can be a very viable solution for a lot of people who can afford it.
Yes, but that's the thing. It's definitely not cheap.
Okay, that's good. That's good to know. I think that's interesting. Yeah, so for me, within my relationship to DIB is within the geospatial intelligence community. So NGA, USGIF, INSA, FCA kind of are in sort of my ecosystem.
Yeah.
And I come at it as a geospatial analyst, and that's or intelligence analyst. So that's kind of my world and my interest in the DIB. It's kind of everything that sort of lives around the NGA. And so which is its own specialty, which is totally separate of the NSA and the CIA and the DIA, and like it's all, so it's huge. I mean, as you know, because you've been working in government for many, many years.
Yeah, it's huge. It is. It's an understatement.
Yeah. But that's actually all of my studies, as you know, I'm wrapping out my graduate studies have been government focused. So it actually started with my master's in urban planning, and that led me to the GIS, which led me to the USGIF accredited degree, sort of with more of a focus on federal. And then my internship was with the U.S. Geological Survey, and then kind of finishing out with a law degree for cybersecurity. So it's been a journey, and I'm done.
Congratulations! Congrats!
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm excited to bring it forward and get to work and figure out where my home is. But I'm pretty clear my home is in DIB.
Yeah, they'll be lucky. So
thank you. I'm really grateful to be here. So with that, we are ready for our day. We're ready for our event. So everybody, we will see you in the next session. I will ping everybody on who's registered on Luma where to meet us next. We've got our panel, got our 4 panelists. I'll be serving in the role of moderator. And I'm so excited to hear from everybody and hear all of your expertise. And I know we're going to have a really great conversation related to the 3 sides as we talk about the compliance and the workforce and the implementation and all of it. We've got a great conversation ahead, and then each of you kind of goes in and does a deep dive on your own expertise. So I'm here for all of it and just excited to hear from all of you today. And thank you again to our audience. We always love having you. And there'll be post-event resources as well, taking in all of this great insight and not only just having the replays, but also documenting it. So it's easier to navigate. So thank you all, and we will look forward to seeing you just in a minute in our next session.